everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mickeeva and I make art videos here on YouTube and just sharing my behind the scenes process of becoming an artist. So every year I've done some sort of New Year related video, and this year I really wanted to try something different. Instead of sharing my artist goals for 2023, which I feel just haven't drastically changed from the previous year, I wanted to share some artist affirmations. These are just mindset changes that I feel like I always need to be reminded of. And yeah, I just hope that these affirmations are just inspiring for you and that they help you to start off the new year with a more healthier view of yourself as an artist. Okay, so enough of the intro. Let's actually get right into these affirmations. So number one is, I'm not a bad artist, I'm a growing artist. When you're a beginner, it's so easy to become discouraged about your progress. And this is because you're usually in a phase where your taste does not yet match your skills. So you may have good taste in art, you may have a clear idea of what you want your art to look like. However, there's a gap between what your actual taste is and your current skill level. So you're probably thinking thoughts of, my art doesn't look like this, it doesn't look the way I want it to. And it can just be very disheartening. And when you're a beginner, you are very sensitive. And I think it's so important to kind of switch that narrative in your mind. And instead of thinking you're a bad artist, really just start to think, no, I'm not a bad artist, I'm a growing artist. Because that gap that I talked about really just takes time and practice to really begin to get closer and closer together until your tastes match your skill and you actually create work that you're proud of and that you like. But in order to get there, there's going to be a lot of trial and error, a lot of experimenting and failing and just practicing. But the most important thing here is to give yourself that room to grow, because growth is something that takes time. And so I'm reminding myself of that, because when I create something that I don't like and that I'm just like, oh, this is not exactly what I wanted it to look like, I just remind myself I'm a growing artist. It's going to take time for me to really get to where I want to be. And number two is sort of a continuation of number one, and it is, I accept where I am in my journey. I know that growth takes time. So in order to really know where you want to go, you must first know where you are. And knowing that where you are is just as important as where you want to be. The thing is, you can skip ahead to when you're actually good at art. If we all woke up tomorrow better artists, that will be great, right? But I think there's a lot that we would have missed out on. We will probably have missed out on the satisfaction of knowing that we never gave up. We never gave up despite the challenges we were facing, despite art block, despite imposter syndrome. Or we will probably have missed out on a time when we worked on a painting and we thought it was the worst painting in the world, but we actually learned so much in that process that we wouldn't have learned otherwise. My point is that rather than wishing you were further ahead, make the most of where you are right now. Because if you really pour into where you are in the journey right now, it will be even more sweeter then. So just be present and know that there's so much to learn even here right now. Number three, I don't have to create a perfect piece of art, I just need to create. So all my perfectionist art friends out there, I know this is a hard one, and I know because I also struggle with this. But honestly, when I go into an art making session with the mindset of, I'm here to just create, I'm here to play and experiment, the final result is just so much better than if I went in with the mindset of, it has to look like this, I want it to look like this, no exceptions. I think that's because I'm going into the idea of creating with less pressure on myself. And when I go in with less pressure on myself, I'm more relaxed and I'm less overly critical of my work. And I just end up enjoying the process a lot more. And for me, creating is really about the process. If I don't enjoy the process, then how I feel about that work in the end is just going to be different than if I just went in with the mindset of, I'm just here to create and it doesn't have to be perfect. Number four, I don't have to be tied to an art style, I can experiment. So I know this is a big one because art style is such a big deal in the art community. It just seems like everyone is always trying to find their style and want to be recognized for their own unique style, which is great. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that's great. But for me, I've always really struggled with this because I feel like I don't have one style. I feel like I'm always experimenting with different styles, or I do experiment with different styles. I explore different subject matters. I use different mediums. And so it's just always hard to kind of tie myself to one style. And so because of that, my Instagram feed is not very cohesive, but despite that, I'm okay with it because at the end of the day, I just want to make what makes me happy. And I want it to be a thing of joy for me, not of like restriction and limitations on myself. So even though I don't have one art style, I don't think that makes me any less of an artist. And I don't think that makes you any less of an artist if you also find that you have different styles. So I do try to find common themes or threads in my work. But if it doesn't end up looking the same all the time, I'm okay with that. I would love to know what you guys think about art style. If you do have your own art style, if you're struggling to find your own art style, just share your thoughts in the comments section because I think it's just a very interesting topic and I'd love to hear what you guys think. Number 5. As much as I admire my favorite artists, I can never be them. I can only be me, and that's enough. So this is another big one because I compare myself to my favorite artists all the time, and I would say probably it's the same for you. You probably have your favorite artists and they're kind of like the standard, you know, you're trying to be like them, you're trying to be as great as they are. And yeah, it's not a bad thing to look up to someone else, right? Because at the end of the day, there's always going to be someone that's better than you. And so rather than seeing that in a negative light, you can change that to more of a positive thing where you think, you know what, I can learn from them and I can be inspired by them. But at the same time, it can also be very toxic if you're constantly comparing your work to theirs, especially if they do a similar thing or create similar art to yours. So if you both do watercolors or you both do fruits or you both do nature, it's just very, very easy to compare yourself to them. Like even more easier than if you were comparing yourself to another artist that doesn't really do the same thing like you. Like maybe you do sketchbook art, but they do concept art, you know, that kind of thing. It's less easy to compare yourself very negatively, very toxically to them. I don't know if toxically is a word, probably not. But yeah, toxic comparison is really hard because it's almost like no matter how hard you try to create your work, you'll always be kind of in your mind thinking, well, it's not good enough because it's not as good as theirs or as good as blank. So I think in that case, if it does get that toxic, I would try to limit your exposure to that person's work as much as possible. And number 6, my work still matters no matter the amount of attention it receives. So numbers can be really hard as an artist, and I think sometimes we just put so much focus on numbers, and it's not to say that numbers aren't important, because they are, especially if you are trying to make art your full-time career and you're trying to grow a community on social media. Of course, numbers matter in that sense. However, it's really important to remember that the value of your work is not attached to a number. So just because a post gets 10 likes doesn't mean that your work isn't valuable or it's not important or that it's not good work, because we all know that on social media the algorithm is something that we cannot control, and we've been sort of trained by Instagram and by other social media platforms to be controlled by the numbers. But I refuse, as an artist, as a creative, to let my worth and the value of my work be attached to a number and be attached to an algorithm. Your work matters if it goes viral, and your work matters if it doesn't go viral. So even though I want to grow numerically as an artist, I also don't want to forget to grow as an artist myself. You know what I mean? Like, I want to also put focus on my growth as an artist, not just in numbers. Number 7, and we're almost done, is I'm still an artist even if I haven't created art in a while. So this is really important for me because sometimes you get tired. sometimes you have art block, and sometimes life just happens and you may not always be consistently creating work. And as artists, we're not machines. Like, we are not constantly just pushing out work all the time. We also need downtime, we also need rest. And not because you're taking a break and you haven't made work in a while doesn't mean that you're no longer an artist. Like, your identity as an artist doesn't change by the fact that, oh, I haven't created work in a while, I'm no longer an artist. And we have officially reached our last affirmation, and it is, I can just create for me even if no one ever sees it. So I record a lot of my process for YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, etc. And it gets pretty exhausting because when you're always turning on the camera, it really breaks the flow of what you're doing. And if you don't know, all the art reels that you see, all the art TikToks that you see take a lot of time to make. And they break your focus because you're always constantly moving and changing the camera angle, you're checking the footage, and it's just really hard to get in a constant flow of like creating. And so sometimes it's so nice when I don't turn on the camera, where it's just me at my desk, just painting away, drawing away, whatever I'm doing, and without anyone ever seeing it, without anyone ever just like being there. Because even though it's just a camera, it literally feels like, oh, like everyone's watching me. And that's not true, but it just feels like that. Like, having the camera always by my side is very intimidating. And sometimes it's just nice to just not have it by my side, to just be fully present in the moment of making and creating. Alrighty, so we have officially made it to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and before you go, I would love to know what your artist goals are for 2023, so please do leave them in the comments below. I would love to read through those. And I hope that this video was helpful for you in some way. I've never done a video like this before, so I'm not sure if it's going to be helpful, or if you guys want to see more things like this, let me know. I would love to do more sit-down videos this year. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Stay safe and cozy out there. Bye!